into these conferences, it's up to you on what you want to take from it. You can go in and sit back and watch people meet new people, start networking, create their interviews, get to know properties and what they have to offer, or you can go in and take the initiative and introduce yourself to those folks, put your best foot forward, get involved in anything and everything just to get your name and yourself out there so you're recognized. And I think it's pretty much up to you on how you want to go into that conference. Either sit back and watch everybody else do that, or make it happen and do it yourself.
One of the great things about being at an annual conference is the opportunity for our students to be able to interview during the job fair, and then subsequent individual interviews. So having hired about 3,000 people in 9 different businesses over 40 years, giving away my age here, what I look for is the nonverbal. So how do they carry themselves? Do they smile? Do they listen to an open-ended question? Do they consider what an appropriate response is? Carry on a dialogue with them in the interview that you can use to evaluate how would they be out in my property, meeting and greeting our guests. And if they're not comfortable in the interview, okay, maybe they're a little nervous. But I also want to make sure that they've been prepared, they've done their homework, and they know why, that they know why they're there. Obviously a great question to ask is, why would you like to work here? And if they can't answer that question, then I guess it's time to move on.
Well, the first advice is be involved. I mean, if you've decided to come to a conference or you've joined RCRA, that's probably the single best thing you can do. The worst thing you can do is go to school and get an education and then go out and try and find a job and then just cut yourself off from all the other people that are of value to you.
No matter which side of the table you're sitting on, bottom line, you have to ask the right questions from both sides to make sure that you get to know the person well enough to know that they're a good fit from their point of view and your point of view.
The best thing I can say for an emerging professional is you have to have a great work ethic. And that's one thing I always try to instill in my students is you have to have great hospitality skills. You have to be good working with people. If you don't like people, don't get in this business. But you have to have a great work ethic. And I think that's one thing in society today that we don't have in a lot of people, but it's one thing I try to instill in my students. And I would say to any emerging professional, great hospitality skills are good, but you have to have a great work ethic to continue your job.
All right. As a professional in this industry for nearly 20 years, I was able to be a student in this organization on both sides. So I know what that feeling like is outside of the room, walking into that interview spot and go, all right, this is my future. Am I going to crush it, or am I going to let it slip? So, as a student, you just got to take pride in what you know and who you are and be confident when you walk into that room. On the other side, as professionals, we want to find the best out of each person. We want to find the person that's going to be our next leader, our next manager. It's competitive in that room. We know who we are all going for and who we want on our team in the future. So it is a great energy. It's great competition, and we thrive on that to be better in our profession. And it's just a great experience if you haven't been in there to know that your opportunity for the future is in the job fair at RCRA. And my favorite interview question is what kind of shoe you would be. I think that's great. It tells me a lot about your creativity and who you are. And I'm coming to the beach and you tell me a flip-flop. I don't know, that might be a cop-out.
Any advice for any of the emerging professionals that might be looking into the cruise ship industry?
Just go at it. I know a lot of times they'll say, we're not taking applications at this time or whatever, but be persistent. And it's such a great job. I mean, you get to see the world, you get to go to places that, my excuse was I got to go to places that I could never afford to go to that I wanted to always see. And the bonding you make on ships is it's incredible. You just make so many good friends because basically you're eating, sleeping, working all together. And, you know, it's just, you're tight. You're like a family. It becomes really your family, and it's your home away from home. And I wouldn't pass it up for anything. If I was a student that wanted to do it, just go for it, because cruise ships it's such a great life. It really is.
And another piece of advice I'd offer emerging professionals is the same one I offered vendors, right? Don't just stick with the fellow emerging professionals. They're your peeps. They're a lot of fun. It is definitely about connecting with them, but force yourself to sit at a table with professionals who've been in RCRA for some time. Get a little uncomfortable and really put yourself out there and learn from those people and make sure that you're connecting with them as well.
There we go. Sean, could you do you have any advice for emerging professionals?
So much, but no, I mean, to keep it to a few things, don't be intimidated by the professionals at the conferences. So if you're, you know, looking to attend a conference, or you're at the conference right now and you're seeing this, you know, I think the big thing is that don't be intimidated. You know, bring yourself to the game. You've got to, you know, advocate for yourself and be successful, and you have to do that yourself. And so, you know, just don't be afraid to walk into a group and introduce yourself, and you will be welcomed. I know that can be an intimidating thing. I was there as a professional, and it was intimidating. And just know that once you make that first introduction, from there it gets a lot easier. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and introduce yourself.
Nice. From all of your interviews that you've done at job fairs with RCRA, what's been one of your favorite interview questions?
Gosh, I feel like we have definitely evolved our interview questions over the years. But I think, you know, the thing that I found the most successful is always just being really transparent, and you know, in addition to finding, you know, asking the questions that qualify somebody for your position, but really just making sure that there's an open dialogue of expectations, what I would expect from an intern or someone coming into my organization, but also giving them the opportunity to be really open with what they are expecting as well, and hopefully being open to that, because I think when you're matching internships particularly, you want to have a positive experience, and not every organization is for everybody, and that's a hard thing to know when you're younger as well. But I think for me, it was really making sure that it was a two-way street of hiring and getting into the root of that partnership before we got too far into the process.
If I'm interviewing somebody, I would want to know, what is it about my property that really attracted you? You know, and I'm not looking for, oh, it looks like such a fun place. I'm looking for kind of a specific that you're familiar with our programs, you know, and our locations and that kind of stuff.
Recently, in the past couple of years, we added this one in as like a fun kind of icebreaker question. It is, if you had won a really large sum of money from the lottery, and you were going to buy an amusement park ride, what kind of amusement park ride would you buy and why?
Interview question of all time is going to be, what is one area that your previous supervisor would say you need improvement on? Because it not only gives them a chance to think about you know, challenges that they might see from previous work employments, and then also have them, you know, kind of step outside of their comfort zone, because an interview shouldn't only be about the positives, but, you know, things that you can improve upon your own self personally and professionally.
The one that sticks in my mind is the one that was asked of me from Sally Evans, working on cruise ships. And when I interviewed with her back in 1991 out at in Bend, Oregon, at the Inn at the Seventh Mountain, it was, you're placed in a room for 2 hours with no supplies and 30 kids. What do you do?
I hate this question probably more than any of the other questions, only because I don't really know that I have a favorite. If I had a favorite, I would probably say it's probably some of the more mundane questions. You know, oh, if you could be, you have a superpower, what would it be? If you could, change something in history, whether it's your own personal history or like world history or your country's history, what would you do, differently to have a different impact? They're pretty mundane questions, but I think the reason why I like them is because it forces the applicant or the interviewee to think. It forces them to show maybe a more creative side of them that a regular generic question of, oh, how would you problem solve this particular issue? Well, hopefully, as an emerging professional, you're going to have some problem solving abilities, but forcing the interviewee to think about a creative answer, or to maybe not even provide a creative answer, provide a really boring answer. And then you're like, I don't know if you're creative enough to work for me, or I don't know if you have, enough upstairs to be creative and be innovative, which is what we need you to be in your job. So sometimes less is more, I guess, is the questions that are a little bit seem more mundane, but force them to think are the questions I like the most.